Grab yourself a beer, grab yourself some food, and we're going to kick into our speaker lineup. I want to thank all of our speakers for volunteering for this. Some folks who you'll see speaking have, spoken a lot, and others, this is their first time doing it. Cheer them on, give them some good feedback. Our first three, just so you know who's on deck. JJ is going to talk about his DevOps nomadic lifestyle. Then Nate is going to talk about moving from Mesos to Kubernetes. And then Dan is going to talk about super fast Kubernetes development with Scaffold. So those are your first three up. Those sound like engaging topics? All right. All right, so here's the rules. It is a 5-minute strictly timed lightning talk. Daria here in the corner is the timekeeper. So if you're speaking and you're wondering how much time you've got left, just stare at her with your Manson lamps a second, and she'll give you a number. At 5 minutes, she is going to pull the bell. Go ahead and do it now to get the scare over with. All right. After that, you're done. I have a candy cane to drag you off stage should that be required, and that's pretty much the rules. So with that, does anybody have any questions, thoughts? Bathroom's back there. All right. I will hand it over to JJ for the first talk. And the podium mic works. We got 2 Roman mics, so whatever floats your boat in terms of mobility. But since he is speaking about a DevOps nomadic lifestyle, I assume he values maximum mobility.
Very true. Can you hear me without a microphone or? Okay, perfect. Like that? Great, thank you guys. So my name is JJ Ruescas. In the words of Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until bang, they get punched in the mouth. 2 years ago, while I was working as a DevOps engineer here in Austin, Lakeline Mall, I was suddenly blindsided by the unexpected cancellation of my work visa, something that was completely out of my control and that forced me to leave the country in 30 days. This was a tough situation, not only for myself, but also for the company, because at that time, the DevOps team had only 1 member. Anyway, this presented a very interesting opportunity. They asked if I wanted to still work with them remotely anywhere outside the US. Fast forward 2 months, I decided to grab a backpack and a laptop. And then I started checking off places that I always wanted to visit. We always have a bucket list, right? While at the same time performing as a DevOps engineer, keeping up this very volatile environment that we had. Well, after 2 years of living in this digital nomad lifestyle, these are some of the key lessons that I would like to share with you. Let's go with it. 1, respect the Pomodoro. The Pomodoro technique is a time management method to facilitate us getting focused on only one task at a time, monotasking. So the point is, you start your task, maybe you need to take a break, you come back to the task, take another break, and so on and so forth until you accomplish your goal. The point is, during this sacred period of time, no email notifications, no chat distractions, no chit chat, or even your unrelated thoughts are allowed to interfere with the task at hand. Basically, what we're trying to do is manufacture what artists and athletes call being in the zone. So, respect the Pomodoro. 2, become anti-fragile. After traveling for 20 cities with only the minimal stuff that you can carry on, and when you have to rebuild your office over and over again, you become very good at being productive under any circumstances. And especially when it's you, the one who decided to cause the disruption in this path. So, at work, what we do is constantly rebuild our environments, correct? In order to do so, we use infrastructure as code. That is great because we moved on from a fragile manual state into a resilient automated one. But if we want to go beyond this point into an anti-fragile state, that's when we need to start using chaos in our favor. That way, we need to start injecting control disturbances in our systems so that we can learn where our weaknesses hide and then go and fix them. maybe thinking about using chaos engineering is worth trying. Become anti-fragile. Third, monitor everything. I bet that everyone in this room uses some kind of tool to track huge amount of data to learn from the systems that we have to keep up and then improve them, right? If so, why are we not monitoring ourselves with the same rules? Nowadays, we have plenty of tools to track our steps, our heartbeat, our nutrition, our sleep, even our emotions. So treating these systems like the ones we treat at work brings the same awareness and also excitement when we decide to improve them. So monitor everything. Fourth, seek out mentors. As soon as after I started traveling, I realized that I was a beginner, not only as a stranger in a strange land, but also in technology. My name is not Bill Gates. My name is not Steve Jobs. So I still have a long path to get to the Technology Hall of Fame. Seeking out mentors constantly, whether they are people, they are books, conferences, podcasts, anything is mandatory. Because when we are able to absorb the knowledge and then experiment with it, that's what provides a quantum leap to the next level in our careers and probably in our lives. Seek out mentors. Finally, as the management guru Peter Drucker says, we are not factory workers anymore. Employees who go to a specific location to produce some kind of goods. Nowadays, we are knowledge workers. And our work starts here and then gets reflected somewhere else in the cyberspace. Because of that, we are more than ever invited to leave behind this Superman Clark Kent duality and instead embrace a Tony Stark Iron Man unity. Thank you, guys.
All right, good job, JJ, who, by the way, is the author of the first DevOps course in Spanish on Udemy, right? It's Udemy? All right, so check her out. Cool. Little tip: keep the mic close to your mug. Next we have Nate Elliott, and then Dan will be after him.
Hi. Can you hear me in the back? Yes. Okay. Yeah, the sound up front is oddly not present. So my name's Nate Elliott. I'm helping Indeed move from Mesos to Kubernetes. The reason for this was there's a team that had adopted Mesos kind of on its own to underpin an execution platform. That execution platform was largely home-coded. There's a number of tools around the ecosystem that kind of wire into it. Unfortunately, the Mesos Marathon offering did not provide some features that they needed, specifically priority preemption, where if you have a high importance job and there's no space left for it on existing machines, it'll kick another job that's lower priority out to take its place. We couldn't get that from Mesos without a large bill that looked like it would come again when we had the next feature need. So we started a project, and I say I was actually not there when they made this choice. I came in to help them with it. It is an on-premise migration, which means that it's kind of the worst of both the Kubernetes and the on-prem world in terms of complexity. Some bits of advice, and then I will kind of open to a couple questions, and then you can come find me afterwards for more. The first bit of advice is lean into the existing tooling for on-prem. We're using Puppet. I'm continuing to use Puppet. I found a good module for it that deploys Kubernetes well, and that means that our existing architecture can be maintained by people who only know the Puppet side well. They can use that as a reference to get them into the other work. The next one is lean into the suck, kind of. The first edition that you do is going to be very specific to your architecture. Do it in Bash. Don't worry too much about code quality. You're going to rebuild it. And you will know more when you rebuild. So getting a first thing out that is somewhat automated will give you a lot of learning. Lean into the ecosystem, and it specifically defend the API so that you can do that. There are several things that we're doing slightly off in order to migrate the existing execution platform over. And those things are accepted because the original team needs them and we need to move off in a timely manner. But I'm defending against any more, and I'm making sure that new teams that adopt it don't rely on these broken assumptions, and that we do backfill fixing those broken assumptions. And the reason for that is the more you hew to the existing API rather than going outside it, the more you can use outside tooling. One of the secondary incentives for this migration is the internal tooling is like pushing code through a keyhole. If it fits exactly so, it'll work great. But if it's any kind of outside tool, it probably won't fit through that keyhole. So we are kind of caught in our inability to deploy outside code makes us write more code internally. So we're moving away from that. And with that, I'm going to open to a couple of questions, and then I'll let the next person. Yeah.
Biggest challenge you faced?
So far, network, and that's really more on the environment than on Kubernetes. We're doing a weird thing where we fold out the pod network to allow direct IP access to pods to support legacy use cases. And doing that with Calico was easy. Getting the Calico wired into the VIP and et cetera turned into a 2-week-long hair-pulling adventure. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Nate.
The USB-C.
Probably.
I tested it earlier.
Okay, go for it. All right, so let's see. So the next 3 folks know they're up. Ethan on how to set a damn goal. I'm not going to say D period, A period. There's no point in that. And then Evan about zapping Selenium. And Boyd, who is out there trying to cut a minute off of his slide deck on Agile, not fragile. Well, he gets set up. Again, thank you everybody for coming. Nobody's done it. Nobody's done it yet. Everybody's been super respectful. But if you decide you want to like start having side conversations in the back of the room or whatever, just be sensitive to the fact we got a lot of people here. Maybe take it back into the break room or whatnot. Just keep the noise level down so that the speakers can be heard.
Cool. Can I use this so I can type with my hands? Can people hear me? Can people hear me? All right, I'll lean forward. So my name is Dan Lawrence. I'm a software engineer at Google here in Austin. I'm going to be talking about some tools I work on to make Kubernetes development a little bit easier. The plan for this talk was to do super fast Kubernetes development with Scaffold, but there was a little twist. I was on a flight back from San Francisco a couple weeks ago and forgot my MacBook Pro on the plane. So it's finding its way back to me now, but I decided to use this as an opportunity to try to set all of this up on a Chromebook. So it's not quite as fast as it would be on a more powerful laptop, but I did get it all working. So this is the Chromebook edition. The tool I'm going to talk about most today is called Scaffold. It's an open source Go project on GitHub. The web page is here at scaffold.dev. It has a K instead of a C, so you know it's for Kubernetes. But the main goal of Scaffold is to optimize the inner development loop when you're working on Kubernetes applications. Does anybody get bored when their code is compiling or deploying? I do. I have a very short attention span. So Scaffold tries to optimize that inner development loop, the process from hitting save to getting your code running and refreshed in your browser for Kubernetes as much as possible. So Chromebooks have a new feature where you can run Linux applications inside of them. So this is actually VS Code running in a VM on my Chromebook. So I'm going to set up Scaffold here, and while this gets set up, I'll explain how it works. The main entry point to Scaffold is just this Scaffold dev command type. This inspects your project. There's a single configuration file here called the scaffold.yaml, which provides the tool with a little bit of metadata about how your application is laid out, where the Docker files are, and how you want to build them. I've only been on this Chromebook for about a week or so, so I couldn't get Docker running. I've heard it's possible. But I took advantage of a feature of Scaffold where you can switch out the way your images get built. So this is using another tool I work on called Canico, which does Docker builds inside of a Kubernetes cluster instead of on your laptop. So I hit Scaffold dev, everything got all set up here. It found all of my Docker files, built all of the source code, set it up, and now it's waiting for me. This example app I'm using is a basic microservices application. There's a front end and a back end. The front end makes a request to the back end. The back end generates some data. In this case, it's emojis, and then returns them to the front end, and the front end serves those. So we can see it running here. The other cool feature of Scaffold is that it sets up tunnels automatically for these microservices. So the front end is serving on localhost 8080, even though this is running on a GKE cluster in the cloud somewhere. So this app just generates a bunch of different emojis each time. So to get to the inner loop part here, we can see Scaffold is running. It parsed the Docker files, so it figures out exactly which source files are used by which service, and then which containers are those source files belong to. So if I go to this backend here, there's a web.go file here. Sorry, that's the front end. I go to this backend, you can see I'm just generating a bunch of emojis. This reads a file, concatenates that with the generated emojis. This is the file that I changed. If I change this and hit save, we can see the Scaffold prompt at the bottom should detect that right away. It knows that that file is not used by the front end. It knows it's only used by the back end. So that's the only thing that's getting rebuilt and redeployed right now. Canico, the tool that does this build, also knows that we don't actually have to rebuild the Go binary in this case, because the only thing we change is that text file at the bottom. So that build is much faster than if we had to actually compile something. Cool, so that's ready already. You can refresh it, see the new message. The same thing works. Thank you. This is the first working demo I've done in a while, so. Exactly. If you wanted to change the web server, just to make sure it all actually works, we can even change the Docker file here. Hit save, and this is going to get rebuilt and redeployed. This isn't a functional change though, so nothing else will happen. One other cool feature, I think I still have time, is that Scaffold should automatically tail the logs of these services. And if you have a whole bunch of replicas, then it automatically picks out one of them, so the logs actually make sense. So if I uncomment this line here, as soon as this build finishes, we should be able to see the logs automatically get tailed from this. Cool. So I'll start that one off. While that goes, talk about some of the other features of Scaffold. I mentioned it has a whole bunch of different ways to build images. If you have a local Docker daemon installed, then it'll do the builds there, which is really fast because nothing is getting shipped over the network. If you want to build inside of your cluster, you can use Canico like I'm using here. Thank you.
All right, random emoji generator, just like my teenager. All right. So now we have Ethan, Evan, and Boyd, our next three up. Everybody having a good time? All right, let's hear it for our speakers, especially the first two gentlemen that did it bareback. All right. You want this mic or that mic?
I'll use that. I'll use a remote mic. I'm a walker.
Rock on.
Yeah. Okay. Being given stage direction here.
Take it off.
Yeah, that's a whole different talk. Oops. There we go. Okay.
Rock on.
Hey, everybody. Is my timer started? We're going? Cool. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Ethan Brooks. Hey, Boyd. It's great to be here. I'm the North America community lead at a company called TopTal. As I mentioned, we work with expert level freelancers all over the place. And as a North America community lead, one of the projects that I focus on is our professional growth programs. And so we compile these different growth programs, and we focus a lot of time on just teaching people different skills that they're going to need in order to be successful, either as business owners or freelancers in their own right. And today what I want to talk a little bit about is one of the things that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is goal setting. It's that time of year. People are looking back on the success of the year before, thinking about what they want to do in the following year. It's a good time to talk about goals. So first of all, no conversation about goal setting would be quite right without a mention of SMART goals. Quick show of hands, who's heard of SMART goals? Great, all right, so if you know SMART goals, you know that they stand for, hang on, my slide thing might have just died on me. Oh, okay. If you know SMART goals, you know they stand for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and terrible. No, you're right, time-bound. But there are some issues with this framework, and by the end of this talk, I hope to convince you of that and show you one potential alternative. So, issues. Starting first of all, I think my laser pointer might not show up here, but with this realistic item. The concept of a realistic goal is great. We want to work on things that are technically possible, but the problem is that in my experience, most people have a tough time with the concept of setting realistic goals. They tend to confuse realistic with small. And the issue with setting small goals is that they're uninspiring. There's usually a lot of competition for them. And if we're collaborating with other people, we want to make sure that they are engaged. So I don't really think we need realistic. We'll just get rid of that one. And now we're down to 4. Next, I want to take a quick look at this specific and measurable section. On the surface, seems like a good concept. But when you think about it, what's really the difference between something that's specific and something that's measurable? Like if you can actually count it and measure it, it's probably specific enough. So I think we can ditch specific and we'll keep measurable, and now we're down to 3. Actionable is good. As our first speaker, I believe it was JJ, mentioned, we are no longer machines working in a machine-oriented world. We're knowledge workers. And the problem that we often face is that as knowledge workers, it's difficult to measure output. It's difficult to measure performance against an output goal. So what I often encourage people to do is, instead of measuring output, talk about it in terms of input. Define an action that you're going to do, stick to it, and if you stuck to it, you did a good job on your goal. Last one's time-bound. I like this one. I think it's a good one. I just think we should change it to something we're more familiar with, and that's a deadline. So we know when we're going to do something, we know what we're going to do, we know how much of it we're going to do. By itself, this is actually pretty good. This will get you pretty far. Pretty simple, so it's easy to communicate. But there's one more thing we can do to take this to the next level, and that's to add a negative consequence for failing to follow through. Add and agree on a negative consequence for failing to follow through. Now, this works on a concept known as loss aversion, which basically says that as humans, it is more painful for us to lose something than it is pleasurable to gain something of equal or even greater value. In other words, if you stand to lose something, you're more likely to follow through on the goal than you are if all you have on the other side is some kind of benefit. And there's a lot of ways to do this. It doesn't always have to be negative, but you can use this to inject competition among your team or inject a measure of fun. How am I doing on time? Perfect. But in the grand scheme of things, create a negative consequence and make sure that you stick to it. So you got a deadline, actionable, measurable, negative consequence. That's your damn goal framework. Now, this is useful, yes. It's also kind of fun because it lets you swear at your clients, your kids, your boss, while pretending to share useful information. But all joking aside, it's fun to talk about. Right? And I think one of the most important things about goal setting on your team is that it's something that you talk about frequently, regularly. And this helps with that. So I hope this was useful. If there are any damn questions, you can find me in the back. Otherwise, thank you for having me.
All right. Doug, Jeff, if y'all don't achieve your goals, you have to give each other wedgies. That was my takeaway. That's the manager takeaway of that time. All right. Evan. All right. So we're going to have Evan and Boyd, and then we're going to do some giveaways. A chill washes through the crowd. Probably.
Lightning. Oh, thank you. I don't see anything. Is it plugged in?
I just replugged it for your convenience.
Should go. Is there another way to adjust the sharing settings? I'm not sure. The screen's not showing shared presentation. Oh, weird. I mean, I guess I could do it off of this.
So in the meantime, 12 clouds of Christmas. We're up to 17 clouds now. If anybody has a bonus presentation. Again. We unfortunately had one drop out. We're up to 18, but plane or something like that. Without that suffice to cause them to not come here. I don't know. It's Cloud Austin. We meet here once a month. It's not always quite this festive, although, you know, within an order of magnitude of this level of it. So you're always welcome to come out.
I'm not sure, dude.
Weird. All right. You're a Cloud Austin organizer. Raise your hand. All right. Folks, if you have questions.
Because the other way she was. Yeah. Your desktop. Well, I guess I can just kick it off without this.
And Boyd, we'll do a PSA while we wait.
Sure.
Hey, if you're on the DevOps Days organizers group, raise your hand. Look around. Those are the people that are going to make an amazing conference for you. Hey, if you've been a volunteer,
check.
DevOps Days Austin, raise your hand. Those are the people that make that conference awesome every stinking year. If you're a Cloud Austin organizer, Postgres Meetup organizer, Austin DevOps organizer or helper, one of the other Meetup organizers, raise your hand. If you're a racker, raise your hand. I traveled all around the country for 2 years as an evangelist. This is the best technical community in the country because of all those people that raise their hands. So I have one request. All of these things run on content. If you have something to say, we want to hear it. If you need a soft landing because you've never spoke before, talk to one of the organizers of a meetup. We want to program you in. If you have something big you want to say in front of a big audience, the CFP for DevOps Days is coming real soon. Get your ideas in. We want to hear them, whether it's an Ignite or a full talk. We want to hear you because that's what community is. That's how you can give back, even if you were not somebody who raised your hand. Thank you.
All right. Evan.
Hey, everyone. I'm Evan Nidajadlo. I work at Pedal. At the moment, I'm doing leading all of the test automation efforts, some of the ops efforts as well. It's pretty busy. I also run Austin Automation Professionals with a few people, one of which is here, Julie, so shout out to Julie. We mostly focus on test automation, but this is more of a high-level talk on kind of the things I'm working on right now. So, you know, what does our current test stack look like? There's a lot going on. We're, you know, everything's in Python, PyTest, Sauce Labs, Pylon on that, TeamCity at the moment because our feature code is .NET, C#. So we make it work. Although with Selenium, I'm looking at Cypress.io, which is pretty awesome in the JavaScript land. But what are we here? Why are we here? And what are we trying to solve? So at the moment, there's a security checklist added to our major JIRA stories. The security checklist is manually reviewed by our dev and quality team, and this is, takes place during the sprint. So you can imagine it, adds some serious time to our sprint. So the issue takes some time. It adds a constraint to our deployments. It's also not consistent. There's that human error there. So what I want to do is automate just the basic coverage. So what's the solution? We wanted to utilize our existing automated functional test suite, and that's our current test suite, which is in Python, and get some basic security coverage in place to save time and effort. We already had the tests, and we needed to add some security, so we searched around and found OWASP Zap. Keep in mind, OWASP Zap offers Zep scripts as well, but we have an existing test suite, so we didn't look into that further. Just for those of which who don't know, what is Selenium? Selenium automates browsers. That is honestly pretty much it. You can use Selenium. You can use a wide range of languages. We did MVPs in multiple languages, Ruby, C#, Python was good for us. What is OWASP Zap? OWASP Zap is the Z attack proxy. It's one of the world's most popular free security tools and is actively maintained by hundreds of international volunteers. They have a wide range of security tools as well. So what does our setup look like and what we're actually working on right now? So our goal is to kick off Zap. So we're going to start Zap. This could be installed in your build system, or you can use this Docker image, which is one available right here, Zap to Docker Bear. Run Selenium. So this is going to be a passive scan. We'll get into that in a second. But while this is actually taking place, wait for the passive scan to complete, start the active scan, run this as default so you can test it out. Wait for the active scan to complete. This could take a long time. So this is something we're looking into running weekly. We have to do some more reading on this, and then ultimately retrieve alerts and reports. So getting into the OWASP passive and active scans. So the passive scans record the requests and responses sent to a web app and creates alerts for detected vulnerabilities. This is shorter and can run during the Selenium tests. The active scans actively modify the recorded requests and responses to determine further vulnerabilities. This is longer and configurable via Jenkins, via a lot of different ways, really. And if you're not familiar with OWASP app, definitely download it, play around with it prior to actually pulling an API into your test suite. But what am I trying to do outside of the pipeline steps? I'm trying to integrate this into our existing test suite using the page object model, PyTest, Selenium driver, WebDriver settings, potentially run this headlessly. I have to look into this further, but definitely use fixtures, need that dependency injection. And then, of course, using Zap Python API, which is going to be added to our base page. And then kind of on the chat ops side, the fun stuff is posting a link to the reports and the results to our test automation Slack channel. We already do this with our failed test with Sauce Labs. You just plug our Sauce Labs URL in a Slack, so it's more easily reviewed by other team members. And that's pretty much it. We have some resources. If anyone's interested in the testy stuff, it's all Selenium Guidebook by Dave Heffner. It's fantastic. Linux Academy, they just fairly recently released some DevSecOps courses. It's kind of a basic intro, but it's pretty great. JUStSayIn, if you want to work on your hacking skills, JUStSayIn is pretty great. Agile Application Security, it's a book published by O'Reilly. Definitely check it out. OWASP Zap, of course, the documentation. Definitely support and donate to them. It's fantastic with what they're doing and what they're offering. And then, of course, lots of blog posts on how to integrate with Jenkins, TeamCity, etc. And that's it. Hack the planet.
All right. Thank you. Thanks. All right. And now, Boyd, you know him, you love him.
No, you don't.
You probably fear what's about to happen.
I have no books here to throw at anybody, just saying.
Speaking of books, as a public service announcement, I'm especially interested in that last talk because myself, James Wickett, John Willis, and Shannon Leitz are writing a DevSecOps book for IT Revolution Press, and we are looking for case studies to include in said book. So if you are doing something exceptionally cool and DevSecOpsy like that, we would love to speak with you for incorporation.
I'm really just the opening act for Karthik. My name is Boyd Hemphill. I'm the CTO at Victory CTO. My job at Victory CTO is to go into broken companies and fix them. Oh my God, all the technical people quit. We can't release. Come save me. That's what I do. You see, basically what I am is I am a plumber. I go into places and I make the things work that should have worked to begin with. You know, you flush, things go away. You wash the dishes, the dirty water goes away. That's my job. That's what I do. I make work happen. I do a lot of technical stuff, but really what I do is agile, because, you know, DevOps is really just agile. I want to really focus on the manifesto, because you won't find Scrum in this anywhere. In fact, Scrum is a process. Don't we value individuals and interactions over that? I hate Scrum. Fuck Scrum. Okay? Why are these companies broken? I've been in 3 in the 18 months I've been at Victory CTO, and all of them are trying to stuff 10 pounds of shit in a 2-pound bag. Stop that. Okay, if you work at a small company, that's your biggest problem. Right now, I'm at a company of 9 people. They had 12 major projects in flight when I got there, and none of them were getting done. They were like, nothing happens. All of our people are mad. They all quit on us. Can you help us? Yeah, really. Okay, so what do we got? We got nothing written down. What are we going to do? Bon. I love that. I'm just going to look at that for a minute. Because that's the answer right there. And I'm not talking about Jira. I'm not talking about plan.io or anything else. I'm talking about Kanban. You know, sticky notes on a wall. You don't even need a whiteboard. You got a wall, right? Okay, so sticky notes everywhere. Make it visible. When Don walks up to me and says, hey, where's my thing? I walk Don over to the wall and I say, your thing is here and to do. I'm working on this thing in progress right now. You need to wait, or you need to go get this person to agree your thing is more important. They bring that person over there. We're making the work visible. And in that place, what we can do, one task at a time, we deliver and we prioritize. The second problem, all work looks alike to people. Everything is a node. They're not really thinking about the entire graph. I was told an Ignite format would get me extra credit. Really, those nodes are these gray pieces here. And we're thinking as engineers about the little stuff on the inside. We know what the details look like. Of course, I've done that a million times, right? Yeah. Anybody ever heard of Cynefin? You know those unknown unknowns? Right, okay. So this is what ends up happening. It's a lot more complicated than we thought. Complexities and unknowns, they get us. Why? Because we didn't stop and we didn't invest the time in breaking down the work. We didn't get the requirements. We didn't demand from the business stakeholder, hey, we need to know what you want us to build before we go and build it. Oh, imagine that. Great. Okay, so we need to break down the work. We need to take the graph and we need to decompose it into deliverable pieces, because that is how you provide agility to the business. Okay, so now I've got trust built because I've got small tasks moving through a system where nothing was getting through the system before. The next thing I need to do is show them what their portfolio of projects looks like. Now you might be thinking, Gantt chart, Agile, aren't those anathema? No, they're necessary. All right, this is actually what's going on at my client right now. Yes, that is sticky notes on a floor-to-ceiling window. These are projects. These are pieces of projects. Some people will call them milestones. I prefer to call them tranches because there's real money tied up in every single one of them. Okay? There's a beginning, there's an end. There are people assigned to them. Some things are started, some things are not. And every other day, the entire company, all 9 people, CEO, right on down to me, we get down, we stand there, and we go through it just like a stand-up. Hey, I can't start this thing because it's unknown. I can't do this. I can't do that. Hey, engineer, you're on 2 things. We need to fix that. All right, so what do we do to break the work down? How do I fix it? How do I break the work down? Why do I break the work down? Again, I'm going to decompose these things into pieces. In doing that, I allow the business to say, now that I've got this done, I don't want to go on to the next thing we had planned. That other project over there, the first step in that is far more important. That's going to make us more money. That's what we need right now. Let's do that instead.
That's flexibility. And you know what? Those things don't happen every 2 fucking weeks. They happen when they happen. It takes 2 weeks if it's only supposed to take 2 weeks. So screw Scrum. Get rid of Scrum. Plan for the things that are going to happen when they're going to happen with estimates. Excuse me. Remember, the tools don't matter. I'm using sticky notes. I'm using GitHub projects. Scrum is for mature organizations that already have an agile practice. I'm going into organizations that are broken. If your organization is broken, even just a little, I'm your guy. I'll fix your pipes. I'll be around. Come find me.
All right. I don't know what tranche means, but I think it means butt crack.
If you look at that really carefully, that's either a tattoo or it's a magic marker. It was, you know, I did that for, you know, no, I didn't.
Well said, Martian. All right. So now, your favorite part of the program, some giveaways. All right. So first, we have Jace from Signal FX. Can I have one of our fair organizers bring the Bowl O names up here? If you have not put your name, the Bowl O names. Oh, good. They're in the stocking already. All right. But it's not coming up here, and I'm not sure why. Yes.
I can do it back there. I can do it front.
All right. All right. So he's going to tell you a little bit about Signal FX, and then we're going to do the drawing.
How's it going, guys? Has anybody here heard of Signal FX? I'll start with that question. All right, so a few hands in the room. Probably a better question is, anybody here in SRE, or site reliability? Okay, some more hands. So Signal FX was the production monitoring system at Facebook. And we've been around for 10 years now, our founding story is, but we really just started going to market. And we work really well with web scale companies. So if you guys have observability projects or anything around monitoring coming up, or tracing or anything of that nature, would love to chat with you guys. We're built for modern scale cloud architecture. So we're in the back. We got Scott back there, who's part of our engineering team. We're here for a couple meetings in town and thought we'd stop by and say hello, have some beers, and hand out this Sonos. So who's gonna be the lucky one tonight?
All right, so we got our special K stocking because we're spelling cloud with a K now because that's all they had left at the CVS.
Right, back me up if I butcher this name. I apologize. Prasad Pillai?
Prasad Pillai. All right. You have been Sonosed. Thank you very much. Signal FX, SAS monitoring. I sum it up for you. All right, we have a second door prize from Axiom. Is that the correct pronunciation? Axiom. All right, a lovely set of headphones.
All right, so we have these. So hi, I work for Axiom. We are a marketing and data analytics company. I make computers turn off and on for them. And in general, we're giving you headphones that have something to do with Vikings and wirelessness and goodness. So a lucky winner is...
Extra bass, just like me. We're spelling Karthik with a K now.
Nalathambi Ramasamy, I want to say.
All right. You now have extra bass in your life, sir.
Thank you.
All right. That is our first round. There are 2 more rounds to go. Let's see here. Everyone's still excited? All right. I'm getting a little warm, I'll be honest. All right. So the next set of speakers.
Hi, I'm here. That's not here, but
This was printed out like an hour ago.
It's missing 7.
Oh, it is missing 7.
Yeah, that's
okay. Somebody was messing around with our meetup and deleted number 7. Karthik, talking about Oracle stuff, I assume.
No, Cloudy with a Chance of Meetup.
Oh, that's right, Cloudy with a Chance of Meetup. So we're doing Karthik, and then Chris, who will be speaking about CloudFormation. Pete, who will be speaking about polymers. I'll save my joke. That'll be your next 3 speakers.
Hello. I think it'll work. My name is Karthik, and as Ernest mentioned, we sometimes have problems because we have many organizers for Cloud Austin. I'm one of them. And so this is a quick thing for the different things that we've done with Cloud Austin over the years. And 2018 was the year, it was a year of change for our group. We went from a couple orgs to many orgs. And today, for Cloud Austin specifically, for the organizer folks, could you stand up, please? Give them all a round of hands. And it's one of the things that's really hard is like when you're running a meetup, and Cloud Austin's been running for a long time, since I think 2010 or something. So it's like, things kind of, that's a long amount of time. People, get married, they have kids, blah, blah, blah. Like stuff changes a lot. So it's good to have a great org team. Also, one thing that's been constant over like the last 6 years is we've always been doing stuff here at Rackspace. Rackspace specifically is a great partner for not just Cloud Austin, but like a lot of different meetup groups in town. One thing I'd really love for y'all to do is if y'all are on Twitter, please, send out a tweet to Rackspace. The marketing folks love it. They help out with, getting funding and stuff for meetups and whatnot, and help Rackspace actually push stuff to, allow them to actually like do cool things for meetups. So give them a round of hand as well. All right, so we've been around 8 years, and we finally got around, I think 2 weeks ago, to actually have a new logo. So you'll see the new Cloud Austin logo. It's Austin in the background. I made this in the Mac version of Paint after I got the image of Austin, so looks cool. Some other highlights. I checked this morning or this evening, we have 2,500 people in our meetup group, and over the last year, we've grown by 500. We've done meetups every month, like folks mentioned. We do third Tuesday of the month. We did one every month maybe this year, except for January, where we had hail or something weird going on. And because we have a lot of orgs right now, we actually use Slack to communicate behind the scenes. So it's worked out really well because like we'll just post messages in there and we keep up. 2019, a couple of things that we're changing a process around is, so click the link. Actually, maybe I'll just go to it straight. The big thing that we're changing is we're trying to make it easier for folks to kind of collaborate. So for folks to speak, there's just an easy link. You can go to that. Oh, I'm not on the Wi-Fi, never mind. But this is just a Google form that kind of looks like this. You type in all your info, whenever you want to speak. And then that's about it. So we're an open community. When you want to talk about cloud stuff, come pitch a topic. Like Boyd mentioned, Boyd traveled around the US. As Oracle, as a representative of Oracle, I travel around the world. And truly, Austin is in a great spot with respect to community. Because if it's not, it's really all of us kind of make it. So, if you're doing something cool, there's other people in the community that also kind of want to know or share. So come on out. Thank you.
All righty. When both of y'all have said your thing, it you know, it's like I've been all around this great big world. I want to do like a California Girls parody, but I can't make Austin user groups scan in there. Yeah. Work on it. All right. We're calling an audible, I'm told.
Yeah. So the, I can either just run into it if you want. Cool. Cool, thanks. Thanks, Ernest. So the original talk I was going to give was on IAM permissions, but I realized that was a little too long, a little too technical for this, and I wanted to do actually a talk I gave last week on a specific problem I was dealing with at the new company I started with a couple months ago. So raise your hand if you're familiar with this image. If you've ever seen it before and know what it is. Awesome, one guy. That's it. Okay, so this is the blind monk problem. The blind monk problem is essentially goes, these 8 blind monks come across an elephant, and because they're blind, they can only really discover the world through touch. So they go up to the elephant, they touch the elephant. If you look here, one elephant says, okay, oh, the elephant must be like rope, right? And he makes a generalization that the entire elephant's like that. This guy says, oh, the elephant must be like a fan because it's the ear. And this one says, oh, the elephant must be like a spear because of the tusk. And it goes on like this, the body, the wall, a leg, a tree trunk, and so on. And what this really exemplifies is the siloization of knowledge in a company. When you're so focused on a specific part of a project, you lose sight of what the entire thing looks like as a whole. And what happens when knowledge becomes isolated and silos are developed and you become over-dependent on those silos? Anyone? Happens when you have too many silos. Or the silo's too big. Well, they break apart, right? So your silos break down. And, we want to prevent that, of course. We want to share knowledge. So one of the first things I did when I came to this company, I realized we had about 5 developers. Every developer was working on a different piece of the project, and they all knew how the project worked, but they only knew how their piece worked. And so the first thing I did is I brought in, some different tools for knowledge share, Confluence. It doesn't really matter what tools, but the idea is to make sure that your developers and your infrastructure and your business all have the full picture of what's going on. When I gave this talk, I had my large architecture that I had built for this company, but I can't show that here for obvious reasons. But the idea is that using different tools, try to visualize what the entire project looks like top to bottom, from the 50,000-foot view all the way down to the 10-foot view, right? Bring that together, work with the team, bring that together. So quick talk too. So let's migrate onto this. So this is the image I like to show when infrastructure people like to talk about the project, right? They usually see it as a grand, oh, what happened here? Come back. How's it going? They usually like to see it as a grand design, something that's stable, right? Something that shouldn't change. And when you go to your infrastructure or sysadmin and you ask them to do something for you, what's usually the first answer they give you? No. No, exactly, right. No, because it interferes with the grand design, okay? So we want to try to, so that's something that DevOps, right? We want to try and change that, but let's keep going. So this is my visualization for a developer, right? When you let developers go crazy with it, right? They go all over the place. They really like to bring in new tools, new projects, new designs, new features. But as you can see, like if you want to go back and see where maybe where is there a leak? How do you know where the leak is, right? It's very hard to track that back. And it's also not very user-friendly too. You only got 2 guys up there, right? Only 2 guys want to ride this ride. So if you want to reduce your complexity, reduce your tool set. So this is why we bring the 2 together, of course. And this is kind of my ideal. This is what I showed in my company. They didn't have any DevOps concepts, but if we consider that there's hard infrastructure, like we saw with this guy, and we have a soft infrastructure, kind of a plastic infrastructure with this one, we can bring these 2 together and simplify them. And now we have a happy, straightforward, easy to identify problems, easy to run, easy to replicate, transport. So you can see that instead of having a grand infrastructure, our hard infrastructure is just some bedrock, maybe some scaffolding we bring up, and the developers can create their simple pipelines and slides for the actual process to run through. And we can see there's a lot more people on it too. So I don't mean to be pushing a lot of philosophy that you guys already know about, but I wanted to show that problem that I was dealing with, and that this was the idea that I brought back to this company. So continuing on, when you have the image spread through the entire company, when everyone sees what everyone else is doing, and that the picture as a whole, you can finally see that, yeah, when you put it all together, it does look something like an elephant. So all of the perspectives are accurate, but remember that there's always more to the puzzle. So thank you very much. Yeah. All right.
All right. Who knows the ancient psychic tandem war elephant? All right. Let's see. Got to put him in your presentation. Oh, all right. Yeah, thanks for asking, because we just captured Chris on the meetup. So, all right. So next up we have Pete for Polymer 2021. And then after that, we're going to have Michael Basnight for cross-cluster replication and Elasticsearch, Paul Gear with Prometheus, and Eric Hensarling with hybrid cloud networking.
Okay, help me out here. Red pill, blue pill? Red, blue, is that all I get? Okay, all right, that was a practice question, but the idea is to blurt out the answer. Question, assume not asking the recruiters here, but the technical people here, is true or false? True or false, anybody here can create an app. Anybody should have the skill sets to create an app. All you need is to be able to make it scale, security, whatever. So I got a false back there. Anybody else? True, false? True. Guys, it's false. We're all in big teams, and anybody knows and what I'm learning is that, and you can see in this app the set of apps that I've been working on the last year or so. Actually, everything is becoming more true. So next question is, what kind of code base competes with native mobile? But instead, it deploys on desktop, mobile, and web. Again, this is a very common thing. It's called a progressive web app. Did anybody come in knowing what a progressive web app was? It's not very popular yet, but it's something that if you think that you need a native mobile app, you really want to learn more about progressive web apps. That's all I can say. These apps that I'm showing here that have been built and deployed, where are these apps running? Anyone want to guess the infrastructure that they're running in? AWS, right. They're running on Firebase. I'll give you a hint about Firebase. It's no ops. It's all API. I was talking to Robert about it the other day. He says, oh yeah, you deploy your servers on the cloud. No, I don't deploy any servers. I don't deploy anything. I just talk to it as an API. The reason I'm bringing that up to this particular group is if you're in ops, you may want to get into apps instead, because if this is any indication, it's super easy to use. It scales like crazy. I get a 30-cent or 50-cent bill every month for my stuff here. I mean, 50 cents. It's amazing. Okay, next. If I am the ops guy and I want to move to apps instead, I want to be like React. I want to just take my widgets and I want to drag them and drop them just like React. I want to drag and drop my data grid. I want to drag and drop a text field, drag and drop this right onto the thing. And that's how React works. That's how it made it cool. But what is my alternative? The alternative is web components, because web components copies what React does, only you can do it you don't have to do it within the React framework. You can do it in just any JavaScript framework. So you can use any toolkit, including Polymer or Skate or Hyper HTML. It's something that you want to keep an eye on if you're not familiar with it. Even if you're in an unrelated field, it's pretty cool. So last question. React at 60%, Polymer at 3. That's 3, not 30, 3%. Why would I come up here like a dumbass and predict that Polymer is going to be the most ascendant set of tools in 2021? Why would I do that? First of all, React has, at 60% of the market, it's been training Polymer people for the last 8 years, because everything that you do in React is almost identical in Polymer. Second, Polymer Lit actually outperforms React in some cases by double. So people are going to want to get that speed gain that comes there. The third reason is because web components work outside React. You can, everything you do in web components, you can do in React, but you can't do the same in React. They don't go outside of React. And the last, you're gonna want to know, why the 2021 thing if it's so cool? And the answer is because it's still pretty immature. It's still pretty much a hot mess. The browsers are only now just able to do web components native without any polyfills. So in summary, you got this. Go on ahead and write that app if you think you can. It doesn't take, I discovered it doesn't take a lot of technical skills to learn this stuff. It's getting tons easier. I would suggest you learn about PWAs before you go native mobile. And I would suggest, especially if you're on the ops side, learning about what's available on the no ops API space, because it's pretty exciting. And be sure to watch 2021 to see if my prediction came true. Thanks, guys.
All righty. The BAS. One of the four fundamental stand-in variables.
What's the fourth?
Quux.
All right, I'll take it.
QUUX.
Hi, everybody.
Bar Baz Quux. Everybody knows that.
No, I got to plug in first. Don't start my timer.
All right. I'll continue to regale you with tales from the new Hacker Dictionary circa 1993. I had the book, yo.
All right. What the hell? This was way big earlier. Nope, can't see that yet. Let's keep going bigger.
Peril of fonts.
All right, cool. Here's my slide. Can everyone see that? Nice. I'm going to need hands on, so I figured I'd just talk loud. Okay, so I'm assuming some of you have used Elasticsearch before. Maybe you have it deployed. My name is Michael Basnight. People that know me call me Baz. I work on the Elasticsearch team. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about cross-cluster replication. So why would you want cross-cluster replication? Obviously, disaster recovery, high availability. That's like the #1 use case that people are looking for. The second one is geo-proximate app backends. So like get your users close to their data. There's a bunch of people, there's some like studies out of Facebook and some other companies that say that like if users, don't get their data within a certain amount of milliseconds, like 10 milliseconds or something, they'll just like walk away and go to another, whatever, probably go to Instagram or something. So like, being able to have your data in different data centers across the world is a really useful thing. So what cross-cluster replication does is it copies your index settings, your mappings, your metadata, and of course your documents across the wire being a LAN, a WAN, whatever you want to do. So how we do it, it's a pull mode. So we have a leader and a follower. The leader is just an Elasticsearch cluster. It doesn't even know that it's really a leader. It's just a cluster. The follower knows where it is in the change stream. So the leader's just sitting there reading and writing documents all day long. The followers are keeping up with it. We explicitly made that decision so that we could have one leader and in number of followers. The followers are the ones that are in charge of figuring out how far away they are from the leader and being able to pull data from change sets. An interesting thing about this is that instead of having one source of truth, like the leader says, okay, this shard is where your data is being pulled from. Well, the followers can pull from any of the replicas, right? They don't need to pull from a blessed source of truth because they know where they are in the change stream. It's the same tech as cross-cluster search, which is already out. Some of you may have used it. It's proven search, or it's proven tech. And the leader is read-write and the follower is read-only. Okay, so demo. So as you can see, this is the leader and this is the follower. The follower is yellow. I hope there's no such thing as yellow-white colorblind. So as you can see right now, we have two indices. Can y'all see that? Cool. We're going to put an index on the leader, kind of boring. But when we come over, we can check the remote info. I've already set this up. You can see that the leader, on the follower, it says the leader is its remote. You can count the indices now. There's nothing there yet because it's kind of boring. But let's go ahead and follow this. So we're gonna now follow this. There's some stuff saying that it's true. Let's put me as a customer, and then let's go over and we can check the settings. Like I said, some of the settings like the number of shards, soft deletes, etc., are copied over. You can actually say, by the way, I named this customer's copy because the indices have to be named differently on the follower. Oops, I already clicked that one, and ta-da, there I am on the follower. So you can go and add, well, let's check the mapping real quick. And you can see that there's only a customer name and an ID. Nothing special, because those are the two things, because Elasticsearch will create a mapping for you on the fly. Let's go ahead and add some things in the mapping, like the customer description and the total contract value. And there's nothing there yet, which is interesting. So you have to put data, and once you put some data to the second doc saying Eric is Harry and his contract value is only 1, he couldn't be here tonight, you can now go to the mapping and look, it's got some extra stuff, the customer name, the customer description, and the total contract value. And of course, this is all in the background that's happening. You can grab document 2. Okay, cool. We have a document. Now let's put a little bit more data in here, right? And we'll go to the command line, and I'm just going to post some data. You don't have to worry about that. That's just posting a bunch of data. That's posting it to the leader. So on the follower, we're going to, oh, fudge. You know what I did? I did not actually create the, yay, live demos. So we are going to delete this, and then we are going to re-put it. There's a setting in 6.x that is auto set in 7.0, which is soft deletes. If you don't have soft deletes enabled, then it's not going to follow. So I learned this the hard way. So now you can see, well, let's follow it, and we can start getting the count. So 9665, 2498, 3602. Of course, this is on the follower, and we're writing in this little text. Oh, no! Okay, we also have auto follow patterns.
All right. Cluster replication with soft deleting documents. Congratulations, you've invented Lotus Notes. That's right, I went there. All right. All right, so now we've got Paul who's going to talk to us about Prometheus, and then Eric about hybrid cloud networking, and then some more giveaways. Are you ready to get married? Yes. Are you ready to get married? All right. Are you as merry as the happy gingerbread man? No, you're not. I can tell. All right. You might be as merry as the Nazi snowman back there.
All right. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I'm going to talk about Prometheus. Who am I? My name is Paul. I work at Red Hat with the monitoring team. So what is Prometheus? It's not that guy. It's actually a monitoring system and a time series database. Monitoring system, if you're not familiar with it, it's kind of like a tax collector, except it collects data instead of taxes. Goes around your system, all your different systems, collects the data, sticks it in a database. But Prometheus by itself is dumb. Just collects data, stores it, then does it again. So you have to be smart. You have to understand your source data. You use PromQL in order to figure out what your data is doing, and then impress your friends with your amazing charts. Prometheus data in the database is all floats, but PromQL actually uses these floats on 3 different data types that you have to understand. Scalar is just a single value. An instant vector is a bunch of values at a specific time. And then a range vector, is a bunch of values over a range of time. So here's what some Prometheus data looks like. I collected this from my laptop. Here we have a bunch of data over a time range, 1 minute. A scalar is just a single data point. Instant vector is a bunch of values at 1 timestamp. And then we have a range vector, which is a bunch of values over a time range. In this case, about 1 minute. Okay, so let's try it out. So the first metric that you'll see when you use Prometheus is this up metric. All that does is it tells you whether your systems are up or not. So if I run it, it just gives me a 1 for the 2 systems that are up, 0 for the systems that are down. So this one is an instant vector because it's giving me a bunch of values at 1 timestamp. On an instant vector, you can perform different operations. So for example, I can do arithmetic operations on an instant vector that I'll just add 5 to each one. You can also do what are called aggregation operators. So if I want to count how many up metrics I have, which basically counts the number of things I'm collecting data from, you can combine them. And then you can even combine 2 different aggregation operators and combine them with a arithmetic operator in order to tell me how many systems are down right now. I have 1 system down. So that's the most basic metric in Prometheus. And so the these queries that I'm running are all PromQL, which is the query language built into Prometheus. So let's try a different example. I'll do node CPU seconds. This tells me how much time are each of my CPUs spending in each different state. So here you can see we have a bunch of different CPUs. There's 8 different CPUs, and there's a bunch of different states. But the one we're going to focus on is the idle state. So the idle state tells us CPU is not really doing anything. So reason why the first one is a lot bigger than the other one. I don't know how well you guys can see that in the back. It's kind of small, but it's a little bit better. So when my laptop's asleep, the CPU 0 apparently is still running, so it keeps adding up more time that the CPU is idling during that time. When I bring it back up, then the times start over. So this time's not really that useful by itself. What we really want to know is how fast is this number increasing. So when your CPU is busy, the idle amount of time spent idling is 0, so the graph stays flat, basically. When your CPU is doing stuff, when your CPU is idling, when it's not doing anything, then that number goes up. So what we want to check is how fast is that number increasing. So the first thing we do is we can look at a range, let's say the last 5 minutes. Here's all the data points that Prometheus has collected from my system in the last 5 minutes. And then what we can do is we can say, give me the slope of that graph. See how fast is that idle speed increasing in the last 5 minutes. So I can check the rate. So now we can see that most of these CPUs are pretty idle in the last few minutes. They're all at like 90% idle. I'm going to switch over and I'm going to release some hogs on my system, see if we can change those numbers. So here's the graph of the time so far. You can see that it's been up close to 1, which means everything's idle. But now I can shorten this range a little bit. You can see once I release the hogs, these guys are kind of going down to close to 0. But if I look at these numbers over here, they show, well, they still look pretty high. So why is that? Well, we're looking at the rate over 5 minutes. We're looking at how much it's increased over the 5 minutes. So I guess that's it.
All righty. All right, Eric, and then some giveaways.
Yay.
Feel free and grab something more during the giveaways, feel free and grab something more to drink. I know it's getting a little warm and I can see the shine coming off your apples, but it's all right. We've got more learning to come.
That's right. Is this on?
No.
Check, check. 1, 2. What is up? Fun PC Master Race subreddit humor. If you don't know that subreddit, it's awesome. My name is Eric Henserling. This is my first time attending here. Thank you to our host, Rackspace. I'm a former Racker, and it's good to be back. This is my home office, or was. So my talk is called Who Needs the Internet? Hybrid Cloud Networking Basics. I work for Equinix, and most of you probably have never heard of us, but you use us every day and you just don't know it. So we're a data center company, and if you've seen Silicon Valley at all, you've probably seen this photo on one of the scenes. Does anybody know why the lights are blue? I'll tell you why. It's because this guy thought it would be cool. This guy is Jay Adelson. You probably know him from Dig and some other projects around the internet back in the day. He also founded Equinix. And it started as an RFP from the government that said, hey, we want to connect to the internet, but we don't want to do it inside of an AT&T or Sprint facility. So Jay was like, cool, let me just build you something. So he built a data center, and it became the backbone of the internet. So we took over May East and May West. This is the exchange that was May East. If anybody's familiar with old school internet exchanges, the Ashburn exchange is up to 306 networks. Wow, that's awesome. So what does this mean for you? This is a talk that you probably won't hear generally at a thing like this because it's mostly developer related, but I think I heard Baz say throw something on the wire earlier. That wire just doesn't happen on its own. It has to be somewhere. So what I'm here to tell you today is you may not need the internet. In fact, you can create your own internet. So let's just cover some key concepts. This reach back way back in the day when you set up your home LAN or you studied the OSI model. What is public peering? Well, that's what the big boys do. AT&T, Facebook, Google, they publicly peer with each other on public IP space. But we want to talk about RFC 1918. You can actually go look it up. It's what defines all those private IP space realms for you. If you've ever heard of BGP or you've seen it in the news lately, it's big and scary, but it's not. It's actually pretty simple, which is why it's also scary. A VLAN, if you're not a CCIE, easy thing to know about this is it's just a way to create a private VLAN with some fancy Cisco stuff or Juniper or whatever you want to use. Single mode fiber, that's what's sticking out of these routers right here, these switches. It's all that fancy neon colored stuff. It's really fast Ethernet. And then private peering. This is the opposite of public peering, but this is what we're going to talk about today. It's going to use RFC 1918 to get you where you want to go. So, time check. Cool. You don't need no stinking internet. You do everything today probably on a site-to-site VPN, but I'm here to tell you, you do not need that. AWS has Direct Connect. Azure has ExpressRoute. And now even Google is here with Partner Interconnect. But how does this work? How do you make this stuff happen for your company? Well, you're going to need a router, and you might want to do this in an Equinix data center. Might be biased. You've got all these projects out there in AWS. They're on a /24. You got Azure on its own VNet on a /24, and you got a Google project on its /24. Well, how are you going to get those to talk to each other? Well, right now, you're probably using a site-to-site VPN that's kind of slow, goes down all the time. You don't need that. What we're going to do is we're going to cable you up using that awesome fiber to AWS's Direct Connect node, which is inside the same facility, and to our cloud exchange. And we're going to create some VLANs, and we're going to create some private BGP routes. Understand, you do not need any public IP space for this. This is all RFC 1918. And before you know it, your AWS is talking to your Azure. Because why? Because your router knows all the routes. I can get you there. Just let me have your IP space. So you might be asking, but why? And I'll tell you, because as you grow, as your applications grow, customers and internal IT are going to demand compliance. You're going to need larger throughput needs than the VPN can give you. You want the lowest latency between these objects, and you want to use each cloud for exactly what it's good for. And I'm here to tell you in Ashburn, you can get between these clouds in under a millisecond using this methodology. So you still need a router, however, so that's a big hang up sometimes, but virtual routers are coming soon. And you can do this through other companies. You can do this through Megaport. You can do this through, I think Packet Fabric has this now, or SD-WAN if you want. You don't need a CCIE. There are scripts out there that will help you do this stuff on your routers. And time's up. Giveaway!
Thank you kindly. All right. Who's a fan of beer and beer-oriented paraphernalia? Well, then you're in luck. Because from command prompt, so we're gonna do Crown Peak and command prompt in this little thing. Debbie requested a move up in the agenda. Yes. While we were out there, she revealed to me that because of my Gremlin sweater that Yoda is essentially a Ewok that ate after midnight. And she's gone. So command prompt, they're a Postgres consultancy, as you heard earlier, and she's giving away a homebrew package and a craft beer brewing package, so you can make your own.
Cool. Awesome. Also, I'm with Other Worlds Austin, Sci-Fi Film Festival. We just wrapped up. I'll be addressing some of the fun things I learned there about tech. And what we have here, first big prize. Actually, let's start with a small one. I've got some Independence Brewing Company, nice mugs, along with a 1,400 miles pint glasses. Don't fear the finger. This is a reminder that you can get guys to talk about beers and bikes, but not about prostate cancer. So those are some gifts there. Hence the fear the finger. First drawing. And the winner is Doug Palmer.
Doug gets the prostate beer. I cannot think of a more appropriate gift.
Thank you so much.
There you go, Doug.
Hey, Doug,
these
you're
are yours
set up,
too.
yo.
Those are yours too. Okay. There you go. Okay. Next prize is going to be Austin Homebrew. We've got 2 Zymergy 101 How to Homebrew magazines, a growler, as well as some tasting glasses. Next winner is. Also, I am the organizer, Austin Postgres Users Group. Please submit content. Prateek, Prateek, full awesome.
Last name hidden by the fold. Zymergy, you're now going to win Scrabble ever after.
You take all that's your right there.
Rock on.
And finally, for the big prize, the grand prize, is a tin from Jester King Brewery out on Fitzhugh Road. If you're not familiar with them, it's a farmhouse brewery, and this beer carrier and a bottle of Das Übrigen. This is the base beer that's used with all the fruited sours there, if you're familiar with that at all. And then also a bottle of 2018 Spawn Raspberry Cherry. This is from spontaneously fermented beer. Our winner is?
Spawn as in the dead guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Michael Basnett.
All right.
Oh, and for everyone else, you're still a winner because while I may not have a backup wine tool, I have a whole bunch of these lanyards with beer openers. There should be enough for everyone in here to grab them. So on your way out, feel free to grab a beer opener. So.
All right, beer openers for everybody. Thank you very much, Debbie. Oh, don't take the stocking yet. Paul from Crown Peak is giving away some Amazon gift cards. Hook us up.
Thanks, Ernest. My name is Paul Murphy. I'm with Crown Peak. We're a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader for web content management. We're completely in AWS as a SaaS solution. We're SOC 20 and FISMA compatible and with security, but we also have GDPR and consent solutions as well through Evidon and active standards acquisitions over the last couple of years. We're giving away 3 $50 Amazon gift cards. We're going to do it via right now. So you're going to write down your text or your email, and I'm going to send them to you right now. So let's get on with it. All right.
Our first winner is.
I think I got 2 there.
Our first and second winners are.
Oh, yeah. I guess we'll pull them out at the same time. Sam Kenkel.
Sam Kenkel. All right.
And you should get half of this other one too, because. Oh.
Daria.
I'm working it.
But no last name, so I don't know.
Who is that?
You know, I was at Little Red Wagon Hamburgers, and there was a lady wearing
In the last one.
T-shirt. You know, the whole MTV shirt. The guy behind the counter was just like, "Whoa!"
And Islam is the last one. Is Islam here? Yeah. Thank you.
All right. All right. He will now electronically Amazon you. That is the only way that you are allowed to be Amazoned in this day and age. All right. So now comes our last brick of talks and then some big giveaways. I see James looking at me like, why is our giveaway last? Oh, dear God. All right. So up next, we have Pecco talking about Zipkin, Debbie talking about science fiction, and Victor talking about cube security with Falco. I won't save the Rock Me Amadeus joke. It's too obvious. I'll come up with something better by the time. All right, and with that, over to Pecco.
All right.
The Bulgarian with the, I don't know what rhymes with Bulgarian.
With the wisdom.
And this is our relationship in a capsule.
All right, folks, sound check. I think we're good. So how many of you guys, when I say Zipkin, does it ring a bell? All right. It's not a furry animal. You know, it's not one of those like, you know, toys you buy for your kids. It's like a implementation of a tracing concept that Google released under their Dapper, you know, distributed tracing white paper they published. So what are we talking about here? Me, you know, I'm here. In general, kind of we're developing content for monitoring observability. Kind of it's one of my passions, and you know, if you want to learn more, you know, follow my sparse tweets. We actually recorded a course with Ernest under the DevOps Foundations. You can check it out. It's right here. Here's yours truly. Kind of cool stuff if you want to look at monitoring end to end. We have some combined wisdom, you know, aggregated and shared. But we're here to talk about tracing. So I'll show a very simple example of tracing a application with Zipkin, a microservice. So what is tracing? Let me make this a little bit bigger. All right, so the gist is we have this distributed architectures that get complex. You know, you're talking about thousands of things interconnected. So the idea is to basically create a way to reconstruct the flow of an application. So a request comes in, you make a bunch of requests subsequently. You want to kind of stitch all that back together and give you a picture of, well, in this case, maybe we have a performance problem. Where are the delays? You know, so it's an extremely useful tool when you're diagnosing, and you know, whether it's production monitoring or you're using things in QA. It's extremely useful to have a tracing engine to kind of help you pinpoint performance bottlenecks in complex systems. So Zipkin, again, it's one implementation. You hear about Jaeger that's being pushed by CNCF. Two competing implementations, both I think are pretty good. By the way, there's a holy war between them, so I'm not going to step into that. Great, you know, check them out. Make your own decisions. So Zipkin works as a library that you put in your code, you know, whether you have Java application or Go application. Basically, you put a tracing library. Then with some configuration, basically you can start hooking into the application and generating these things called spans, right? So a span is a start and an end timing of a certain function in your application. And then you have, you know, all that's happening inside code. And then the reporter is running in the background, sending the trace data, the distributed trace data into their Zipkin. It's like it's running as a daemon, but you can attach storage to it and so forth. So pretty straightforward architecture. Right now, these are the implementations available. The example I'm going to show here in a second is Brave, which is the Java version of the trace library. So let's run into it real quick. So I'm going to start my backend service. I'm going to start my front-end service. Again, these are the actual microservices that are running. Again, you can containerize these, whatever. I'm just running a very simple Maven Jada build. It's a Spring app. So I have both of them running. Now I'm going to launch Zipkin, which is the daemon that's going to run on the box. All right. So this is going to initialize. So now I have my application running. I have my Zipkin collector and daemon running. I'm going to start generating some load on it. on the application. And now the moment of truth, would it actually work? All right, so what? Okay. Let's try this. All right, there it is. Woo! We got traces. All right, so now I don't have storage running in the daemon. So you're just keeping this in memory. Every time you recycle, it's gonna drop them. But now here's the cool thing. I have I have a request making a front end. The front end is making a call to the back end. So if I open this trace, I got this wonderful little chart showing me how the trace propagated across the system. So I have the entry point from the front end. It's being timed, and then making a subsequent backend call. So pretty straightforward. At least I made it look so. But the idea is, again, it will give you kind of another useful tool when you're monitoring and diagnosing like complex problems in your production environments, in addition to your logging, to your metrics, and so forth. So, in addition to, I had some examples of how you actually, put the libraries in your code, how you configure them. But I'll just point you to the Zipkin Brave examples that I posted. So that's it.
All right. All right. Thank you, Pecco. Don't take the cable with you. All right. We're going to do Debbie and Victor, and then we're going to do a bonus giveaway. And then we'll do our last 3 talks and do the final giveaway.
Okay, so take that to that.
I have this thing up at the Flick's Brew House, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, it's up in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, Otherworld's Austin. A lot of fun. So, can you hear me? Is that or is it this I'm talking?
Either one.
Okay, you hear me okay? All right. So what this talk was inspired by really came from me going recently to, all right, it's not showing on the screen. Where's my tech guy? How do I get it extended there? So while we try to get this screen up, okay. What really inspired me to do this talk really had to do with being at AWS reInvent recently and talking to Chris Castle, who's a developer advocate for Heroku. And a statement that he made to me was that he said, my concern isn't from 10 years from now that we have automated everything and have technology such that we aren't needed to do the work. What concerns me is that we'll still have the humans who have to power it, but what are we doing to take care of those humans? And do we lose our humanity in that? And it's something that kind of comes up a lot in regards to thinking about science fiction and what the views have been in the past and where we are going. And oh, yay, there it is. Great, awesome, perfect. Now if I could just put this to the present. Right here. It says top right. Thank you, folks. Yes, this is my new Chromebook. All right. So what science fiction teaches us in tech? Robots and artificial intelligence, travel to Mars and beyond, controlled robot arms. These are all things that in the past were speculative and science fiction. But now we've gotten to the point where we see much of that, right? The Hyperloop. And so now where are we? Well, one of the things that you think about when science fiction, say 100 years ago, was viewed as something that was a bit frightening. There was fear there. In the 1920, when the term robot was first brought up by a Czechoslovakia writer, and to describe the idea of these of the servitude of these servants that would be doing our role for us, right? And so then going on and get into the 50s, you've got people like Arthur Raudabaugh, who is talking about the future is closer than we think. And it's interesting to look back and see what he saw for our future with things such as computer navigation for airplanes, for the pilot just to really not need to be there, but to have keep mid-air collisions from occurring by having using computers to do so. And it's really interesting to see how much of that's come true. but he still had the monitor office. He still had that human being there, right? And again, robot driving, the idea that you could just sit back and play cards and enjoy your ride. And where are we now with automatic cars? Well, every once in a while, data can crash your car. Somebody's able to hack into your entertainment center and take control of your network, as a couple of security researchers showed us recently. And so there is a little bit of that fear still there when we look at this automation, right? And even in looking to the future, this is a short film we had at Otherworlds Austin, and the idea that you're serving your time by coming in and getting screened every day as you come in and come out. So we don't really necessarily want to go there, right? There's also this thing we always see in science fiction about we are not alone. And we think about this in the grander scale of aliens, somebody from beyond. But we also now, in this day and age with artificial intelligence, that there is this idea of, can we actually have a sentient being? Can we develop our technology such to have artificial intelligence that can be caregivers, that can be service workers, that can be children and such? And still, what I think is really important with each one of these fictional characters in science fiction has to do with the humanity that you see behind those characters. That's something that really draws me to science fiction, is that as much as I love the technology, especially technology with unexpected consequences, it is about the idea that with engaging story, great character development, we are seeing a reflection, a mirror of our own humanity. And then at the same time, being mindful as we are developing technology, that we're keeping universal design in mind as well. It's a design of building products or environments to make them accessible to all people, regardless of age, disability, or other factors. What does that have to do with us? Well, think about closed captioning. This is something that was created for people who are hard of hearing and who are deaf, but yet how many of you have probably used closed captioning within the last week, right? Watching movies late at night with the sound down so you don't wake up your spouse, or you're at the airport or the gym. At the same time, when we're developing our technology, are we missing those connections? This is a filmmaker that we had at our film festival. We had a couple of films, and we were happy that we were able to get ASL interpreters, but there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of technology that's being missed. And in doing so, are we not engaging with people who could bring a more diverse background to technology, and therefore creating more effective tools with that universal design? Let's see if I can do this real quick. I don't know if I can. Okay, so, oh, here we go. Let me see if I can do it. Oh, I want to show you this real quick. All right, so here's an example how we can do this. So I hope that I can talk and demonstrate to you how during this presentation, I have made our technology more accessible. I discovered that earlier. Finally, what next? Engage. Boy, everyone else covered it. Engage with one another. Just being here is a great opportunity. So thank you.
All right. I'm not worried. Amazon's patented a lovely cage to keep me out from underfoot of our robot overlords. All right, and now Victor, and then a lovely giveaway.
So the other day, my boss came to me and said that our Google Plus theme generator wasn't working out. He told me I needed to work on a new product. So I'm here to show off what that is. Give me 1 second. I gotta mirror my displays. Can you guys see that? Is it too small in the back? So what I was told to build was a dig as a service. So I just wrote, told my boss it would take 2 weeks, and I wrote this little function, and I realized that I can just call bash and just pass in whatever people want to the dig command. And so I think it works. I'm going to go ahead and deploy it. I realized that my code up here, my Docker file, it's not very efficient by doing this first. So I'm going to move these layers right here. Just kind of take advantage of Docker's layering system. So I'm going to go ahead and get status, get commit am, optimize Docker. So git
I'm using Google code repo, so I'm going to go ahead and push to Google. And so we push, and I've got to actually, you know, I'm a pretty good engineer, I think, so I got to wire it up to Cloud Build. So we're going to see that if I go here, I'm going to refresh, I'm going to see Cloud Build kick off. So while that's happening, I'll kind of walk you through the steps of what's actually happened. So in my repo, I've got this file called cloudbuild.yaml. And so it's only got a few couple steps. The first step is Docker build. This is running this Docker command, build. You know how that works. And then we push it to GCR, which is Google's Docker repo. And then we're going to just run kubectl apply, and it's going to automatically deploy to my Kubernetes cluster. So I'm thinking, let's see, almost done. Step 2 is running the apply right now. So now I should be able to go to my service. And then let's try it out. So it takes in a parameter like domain equals like google.com, hit enter. Oh, it works. I'm getting A records back when I query it. And one of the features is I can actually like add in something like, you know, I want an MX record. I can hit enter and I get MX records. It's great. But then I realized, hey, what happens if somebody takes in a URL encoded value for like, you know, catting out my password file like this? You can't actually see that, sorry. So I go to this URL encode site and I just put in like some command, su-c, yada, yada. I get this string, right? I'm gonna put this string into my, my application here. And oh, actually, you know what? I need to do a semicolon. So I'm gonna do home, semicolon, get to the next command. And so here's the semicolon. And then I'm gonna paste this right behind here. I'm gonna hit enter. Oh no, I got my password file on the internet. This is terrible. So what do I do now? So I found this thing called Falco. So Falco is a project. You can go here to falco.org. It's part of the Cloud Native Foundation now. It's in incubation, I think. And so you can run it with an easy Helm chart. So I'm gonna go ahead and deploy that. I'm really pushing my boundaries of my 5 minutes here. I'm gonna deploy Falco using Helm. Let's see. And and then while that's installing, what I can do is I installed it to a particular namespace. And if I go to my logs view and go to, this is Stackdriver logging in Google Compute Engine. So I can key container my dev cluster, namespace is Falco, that's where I deployed it. I'm gonna hit this play button and hopefully we'll see some Falco logs come up. So the cool thing about Falco is that it actually builds kernel modules on the fly on the first run. So it's going to detect my kernel that I'm running in CoreOS, which is what GKE is doing, and then download the right headers, build some stuff, and then use Berkeley Package Filter to tap into the kernel. This doesn't require any additional elevated privileges. You can do this in user space. So there we go. It's configuring the kernel. It's downloaded some stuff you can see here. And so I'm going to, when I scrolled, it took out the tailing. So it's complaining about a couple of things. But I'll show you go ahead and the Falco rules that I've written. So there's a couple of rules in here. We're gonna like check for shell binaries up here. We're gonna see if anybody spawns a terminal. We're gonna see if anybody attempted su or sudo, and we'll see what happens. So you can out of the box, Falco also has some rules, and it's already detecting that some people are already trying to detect some or connect to the Kubernetes API server. We can go ahead and remove those if I had more time, but
Keep going.
come see me if you actually want to see the detection work.
All right. My Amadeus has been rocked. All right. And now a giveaway from me and the other folks at Alien Vault, or as we are now called, AT&T Cybersecurity. But it's okay. We killed them and took their stuff, so we're actually we're in charge of the division now. So we are hiring. So we're growing quickly. We're trying to containerize and microservicize and Kubernetes-ize and whatnot. We need Java developers, including high-level ones. This is Matthias. He's director of engineering over there on the dev side. So, we need architect level developers. We're also hiring on the DevOps side. I'm director of engineering operations, and we have a bunch of stuff we want to do that is way more than what the current staffing will allow us to do. So they're like, well, go hire people, sucker. So we're basically here to say we're hiring. You can raise your hand if you are with Alien Vault. All right, so Green over there, Doug over there, Matthias here. Talk to any one of us, or there are some business cards in the back. You can tell they're Alien Vault because I got an alien on them. They're to Chris Murphy, who's the VP of development, and hit any of us up. So with that, we're giving away some Fire TV cubes. 2 of them. All right. And the first fiery winner is Be My Valentine, Mark Valentine. All right. Congratulations. And our second winner. Carl Katsky. All right. All right. Thank you all very much. And Alien Vault until that branding is wiped away and we're AT&T Cybersecurity. But you can find us either way. All right. So now we have 3 last talks and then a fun giveaway from DevOps Days Austin. So our last 3 speakers are Dee talking about a sustainability budget, Neil talking about Kubernetes plus Pivotal, and then a special last-minute write-in. It's going to be Grant talking about machine learning. That's right. He just came here and generated a talk. Let that be a lesson to you. All right. So with that, Dee. Podium mic or a mic?
Mic, please. Switch the dongle. No pressure.
Are y'all still going strong? Yeah. All right. Learning something?
I got my timer and...
All right, you're up.
Great. So let's talk about development, right? To make a happy development life. That's what we want. So we've all been here where we start a development project with the best of intentions. And somehow after a while, we end up with that, right? How do we get there? We start with the best of intentions, as I was saying, but we build one feature and then business comes to us saying, build something else. We build that. They come back to us saying, build something else, and I want this really soon. You build that. Now, pretty soon you end up there. Now let's visualize how the code itself looks, right? You start with a blank canvas. And by the way, this is based on a blog post from Ron Jeffries, who's one of the founders of Extreme Programming. And I strongly recommend reading the blog post. So we have this code pass through the code, right? It's all nice, fine, and dandy. But while we are developing that, we create some tech debt in there. Then the next code paths come through. They add more tech debt. Eventually, when we have to add new features, you have to go around these code paths, and it's just frustrating. Proper way to do it is while we are developing stuff, you clean up the bushes, right? So you clean up, you refactor, and you have pretty straight through code paths now. Great. Now what happens is you get to reap the benefits. So now you create a new feature that hits pretty much some of the code paths that you already cleaned up. So that makes you go faster. That makes you go with less bugs. Great. So why shouldn't we always do it? Why even, right? Why even a case for a sustainability budget? Refactor as you go along. The problem is never refactor and add functionality at the same time. That's a very good way to shoot yourself in the foot. Great. I have a gnarly story. I can split it into 2 stories. I can create a refactoring story, and then I can create a new functionality story. Great. You can do that. Can you do that? You absolutely can, and you should, by the way. But what happens? A lot of times when you split that, you will get the buy-in for the second one, not the first one, right? And we tend to take shortcuts because there is idealistic and there is what we can achieve. And since the goals are towards delivery, we tend to take shortcuts and it hurts. So what is the solution? One thing is to use the concept called a sustainability budget, where you pitch to the business and the management that you want to put 20% of every sprint to developing non-feature related tasks, right? You use that to fight tech debt. You do refactoring, increasing code coverage, which is always a good thing, fixing bugs, and then doing technology spikes. Great. What does that buy you? Makes you write cleaner code, lesser bugs, more maintainable, more structured code, deliver faster. So when business is happy because you're delivering faster. They come to you with a new feature. They'll say, no issues. We can give that. Work satisfaction. Right? You see, the developer is happy and the businesswoman is happy. But to make it happen, what do we need? We need buy-in from 2 people. We need buy-in from management and we buy-in from product or business. A few selling points that can typically help. Right? It positions the software, having something like this, it positions the software to deliver faster, to deliver at a higher quality, and it also improves employee retention. Because who wants to work on crappy code? Nobody. It also lowers blood pressure, but that's my take. So this is one of the features. There are a ton of other features, concepts. There are a ton of other concepts called Boy Scout rule. Right? What that is every time you touch a piece of code, you leave it better than what you found it at. Sprint grooming. Some of the gentlemen talked here. Before you go into the sprint, you analyze the problem. The more you analyze, there's a saying called weeks of coding can save you hours of planning, right? You avoid that. So we try to follow all the features, all the concepts. We are clear. We do identity and we do payments with biometrics. We're now in Austin and we are hiring.
Great. Trying to avoid the ding. I see what's going on. All right. All right, Neil, a little bit more cube for you. Who loves the cube? Who gleams the cube? Strangely the same people. I guess once I finally give in to the Kool-Aid and do some Kubernetes, I'll have to do a presentation called Gleaming the Cube. What's that? All right, and then after this, Grant.
All right, guys, we almost made it. It's the penultimate presentation. So I'm going to talk about making Kubernetes functional with Pivotal Function Service. So Pivotal released a platform for running functions as a service on top of Kubernetes earlier this month, and I figured alpha release, let's do a live demo. So why do we want to do functions as a service? So infrastructure as a service provides us computing resources on demand. Kubernetes gives us container orchestration, which is cool, but I'm a developer. I don't want to write Docker files and build Docker images and do all that stuff. I want to focus on my code. So what Pivotal Function Service does is it allows me to write functions, push the code out, and PFS will build my Docker images. It'll scale my functions for me. It'll handle my runtime. It'll handle my routing. It'll do all that stuff. So PFS, I deal with the code. It uses these things called build packs. If you're familiar with the Pivotal Cloud platform as a service offering, it has an automatic scale to 0. So if my function is not being used, it'll put it to sleep. I can use HTTP, or I can do event-driven functions, and I can run it on public and private clouds. So if you have a Kubernetes cluster, you can run it. It's also open source. So here's the architecture. At the bottom, you have your IaaS layer. It could be VMware, it could be Azure, GCP. Got Kubernetes on top. We use Istio for routing between containers. Knative is what actually builds our functions for us. And then Project Riff and Pivotal Function Service are what gives us the API on top of that. So let's do a demo. So I'm going to deploy some code real quick. This is a node project. So it's just a function. Can everybody see that? Make it a little bigger. So basically, I'm exporting a function that takes in a parameter, and then it calls this random words node library that I'm running, right? So how do we deploy this function? We run pfs function create. We give it where the code is stored, and then we tell it what Kubernetes repo that I want to deploy it to. So hopefully this will work. Create function. So what this is doing is it's taking my code, it's building a Docker image, and it's deploying a Docker container along with an Istio sidecar for routing. This is all happening in GKS. It'll take it a second. So you can see it's using, it realizes that I'm using Node.js, so it's using a Node.js build pack to build the function for me. And it's going to deploy my container to my Kubernetes, my GKE Docker repository. And we're calling this function Cloud Random 2. So while that's going, I'll show you how to actually invoke the function. So we do pfs service invoke and the name of the function, and then I'm passing it Cloud Austin. So that's completed successfully. Invoke function. So that's my output. So it's generating those 5 random words, and it says Cloud Austin. So I've successfully deployed a container out on my Kubernetes cluster, and I can show you that real quick. You can see this random words pod here. Oops. So I've got multiple containers. I've got a user container, a kubeproxy, and all I did was push my code with a simple command line interface. So this is really useful if you're running a private cloud. If you're doing public cloud, I'd still recommend using Lambda or some other functions as a service like that. So I'm going to give you the slides and the source code to all this stuff. Are there any questions about PFS? There's no concept of a step function yet, but you can orchestrate function calls because it can do HTTP or basically responding to events. So you can wire functions together into an event pipeline, which will give you similar functionality to a step function. But this is alpha release. It'll go GA probably spring or something like that. I don't know. I don't work for Pivotal, so. But you can run it locally on Minikube, or you can also run it on GKE like I am. All right.
All right. You too can have serverless if you run it on top of Kubernetes, on top of OpenStack. And then tack your genitalia to a chair. All right. Grant Rostig.
Podium mic or mic?
Yeah, whichever. No, I'll use this, yours. No plugins?
Oh,
How about
plenty.
HDMI or EGA? The old-fashioned stuff? Oh.
But no VGA.
No,
you don't. You're not have to press it.
Ooh. Anything? Apply.
Rock and roll.
Okay. Keep change. Hi, I've been programming since 1978, and people talked about artificial intelligence a lot. I never believed anything. But then in 2015, I said, they seem to be doing some cool things with AI. So I've studied really hard, trying to understand, not just copy paste. And I thought I'd let you know the magic, the secret of machine learning. The secret of machine learning is that if there is a pattern in the data that relates to what you're wanting to find out, you can have an algorithm which will learn from data. So the program modifies its behavior based on the patterns in the data. Essentially, you have the learning algorithm, which uses a hypothesis set. You want to limit the size of your hypothesis set. You have training examples. You want lots of training examples. You're trying to find the target function. That means the reality. What's really happening? What is the true relationship? You're probably never going to find the true relationship, but you will find a final hypothesis after your learning algorithm has done its thing, and then you'll have something pretty good, maybe. So you've all heard of neural networks. Yeah, they're cool, right? But they're based on something called a hard perceptron. Most people have never heard of a hard perceptron, but that is actually what makes things happen. This perceptron is a hard perceptron. In a neural network, you have something called a soft perceptron. Actually, you have many of them. You have columns of them, and you have layers of them. You got a bunch of these things called perceptrons. But these are hard perceptrons. The other ones are soft perceptrons. What's the difference? The difference is this here. This is a function called sine. It is positive for positive values and negative for positive 1 for positive values, negative 1 for negative values. That's it. It's either on or off. Okay, so what are we trying to do? Like I said, we have data. So here we're going to try to classify. We have some situations in our data set where we know, yes, this is a bug, or yes, this is spam, or yes, this is a cat. And we start off, the computer program doesn't know anything to start with, so we start off with a random line. And the idea is that we try to separate the truth of, cat or not cat, or possibly cat or dog, either yes or no, just a categorization, a simple categorization. How do we do that? We use the magic of linear algebra. Linear algebra is a university course, which I've been studying. And essentially, we have vectors. So that line I showed you is a vector. And then each of those points in space can be considered a vector. And the relationship of a vector, if you have two vectors that have a acute angle, the dot product, you may have heard of that, the dot product is positive. If they are at an obtuse angle, like this, okay, I've got a picture here. If they're at an obtuse angle like this, then they're negative. So essentially we update we start off with a random solution. The random solution is called W for weight vectors. And then we incrementally, slowly update the weight vector based on whether or not the dot product is positive or negative. And incrementally, we move around and move around. Here we have, let's say we're starting to get close. We need to capture this plus. So the update that I've shown you this here, your weights, essentially your weights are updated by your data and Y. Well, Y is the label. It's a bit of a linear algebra trick. But anyway, we keep going and running and running and running. And eventually, we separate our data. Hooray. So this is called the perceptron. Now, I've shown you a straight line. Who cares? Yeah. Actually, if you use 1,000,000 dimensions or 1,000 dimensions, you might be able to categorize a bad event on your network or a bad event on your Unix server, your Linux server now, or wherever. So this would apply to DevOps. So it's possible, and there are some vendors using this sort of thing. But let's say we didn't have a straight line. Let's say we had this mess here. How are we going to draw a division between this? Well, we can't. So what we do is what we call a linear transformation. So we can actually use a transformation, phi, and here we're going from Cartesian coordinates into something called, help me out, radial coordinates, polar coordinates. Okay, so we have a formula to go to polar coordinates, and in the polar space, we can draw the line. Hooray, wow. So we use the perceptron to find that line, and then we can come out of our transformation. We do the reverse of our transformation, and we go back into Cartesian, and we can run our decision algorithm. cbpmsg.com.
All right. Thank you for putting that together so quickly. So I actually have a linear algebra joke.
Oh, wow.
So what do you get when you cross a dog and a cat? Dog, cat, sine, theta. All right. Haven't used that one since college. For good reason. All right. So we have a giveaway if James and Karthik want to bestir themselves. Bestir yourself. So this is from DevOps Days Austin. I guess nobody's going to get the actual prize. I can only do one thing. Anyway, so we have a PlayStation Classic. You can be classically PlayStationed. Do you want to say something about DevOps Days Austin?
DevOps Days Austin. It's what, year number 8? Year number 8 coming up 2019, May 2nd and 3rd, I believe. It's the first Thursday and Friday of May. It'll be at the Gerald K. Royal Stadium at UT. We'll be opening up the CFPs and attendees and all that stuff early January. So we've just started put the crew together, just start working on all the CFP and all that stuff, and we'll be kicking it off early January. So we're giving away this PlayStation, and the cool thing about it is it comes with like 20 classic games. So you can take this, you don't have to buy anything additional. You can just go and like play this at home this evening. Yeah, this was sitting on my coffee table for a couple of days, and it was really hard like not to open it up. It's still sealed. I haven't opened it.
Yeah. So who's been to a DevOps Days Austin? All right, bunch of folks. So always good learning. The one kind of pitch I want to put in for this year. So when we put tickets on sale, you probably want to get in there quick. We're capping it at 400 this year, which is approximately 250 under the number of tickets we frequently sell. So act fast. The second thing is we're curating content pretty tightly this year, right? We don't want all the same kind of DevOps, speaking circuit talks and vendor talks and whatever. So we're going to go for a very practitioner-focused format. We're going to look for talks that say, as a whatever I am, here's a problem I had, here's how I solved it, right? And we're going to curate for very practical talks that the people that actually do the work here in town are going to want to hear. So we would love for all of you to submit a talk. We want to, get all the people doing great stuff, primarily here in the Austin area, to share and learn from each other. That's why we do all this stuff, as Boyd says. So who would like to be our Vanna White?
Let's go. It's game time.
And the
winner
James? Is
George Freeman.
George Freeman.
All right.
Woo!
All right. We thank you. And DevOps Days Austin thanks you. And speaking of thanks, so let's hear it for all of the brave people that came out and gave a talk today. I'd also like to thank all of our sponsors, Rackspace for the venue again. We have Google for the meal. Capstone for the beer. Top Dole for the cupcakes and treats. Command Prompt for the wine. Where'd that begin? And Other Worlds Austin, of course, the Sci-Fi Film Festival for more sweets, and Flying Man Brewery for the watermelon wheat beer. So thank you very much for those sponsors. Y'all make sure and talk to them if you want to talk to them. One of the things that kind of is the thing about Cloud Austin is we don't sell our lists. We're not giving anybody your email. Like, we don't do that, right? So, you know, these fine folks are coming out and sponsoring, and they would love to hear from you. They'd love you to go look at, look at Google, I guess. Look at SignalFX. I mean, you're going to look at Google. Let's not kid ourselves. But you know, look at your SignalFXs and your Axioms. And your Alien Vaults and your all these folks who are helping to support our lovely Austin user community. And with that, I have run out of thanks to give, I guess. So thank you very much for coming out. Feel free and loot the rest of the food and drink and stuff, and talk to your favorite speaker. And Don would like to say something.
I was just going to suggest that the rest of us should thank Ernest and the rest of the organizers.
Well, thank you. We've got a great band of organizers. It is a little bit of a. I'm glad we've got some new help, because towards the beginning of this year, like, I was like, God damn, I've been doing this for 7 years. It's a little bit of a grind, right? And kind of there wasn't a lot of help. So we've got a bunch of folks that are actually putting in some help, and so that's great. It doesn't take a lot of work to put on a user group. I like that Karthik did a lightning talk about user groups. So whatever your interest is, there are a lot of user groups here in Austin. Cloud Austin tries to be kind of a little bit of a clearinghouse. We do a bunch of, we cover a bunch of things, and then as topics get hot, individual user groups arise, and then sometimes they fall, right? Like Docker Austin and stuff like that when there's not a critical mass anymore. But whatever it is you're interested in, there's probably a user group for you to plug into. That's one of the things that makes the Austin technical community great, right? You go out to Silicon Valley, like, nobody shares anything with each other. They're worried, you're going to steal my hot idea for a dogs for Uber start or whatever the fuck, right? Like they got their heads screwed on wrong out there. And here, right, everybody is willing to help each other, right? There's been a lot of technical love connections made in this room over time, and I'd like to encourage everybody to speak. Whatever it is you're doing, somebody out there wants to do the same thing, right? You're implementing something your company needs. There's a bunch of other folks out there that need to do that exact same thing, and they don't want to hear a vendor talk about how the stuff they sell you can help you do it. They don't want to hear about that. They want to hear about how are you doing it? What are the challenges you've faced? How have you made it work despite that, right? That's the value that we all bring to each other as part of the Austin technical community. So thank you very much. Have a happy holidays, and come back out to Cloud Austin.